Hi, everybody. It's at Skating PJ, and I am here today with one of my very favorite people, and that is Danielle Earl of Danielle Earl Photography. Danielle, thank you so much. As one of the leading skating photographers, thank you for taking the time to speak with me today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I'm excited.
This is exciting for me too. So I want to go back in time, let's say 8 years or so. You were a mere child of about 10 years old, I know.
Roughly.
Um, But we first met at the Summer Free Skating Competition, which at the time was held in
Hmm.
Thornhill, just outside of Toronto.
Mhm.
And here I saw this lovely young woman who was looking a little lost. This was maybe your first big skating competition, and you were asking me sort of all kinds of questions, and kind of our friendship came out of that. So tell me a little bit about those early days of skating photography.
Oh gosh, I did not know what I was doing. I just kind of jumped in with a hope and a prayer, and I was really lucky that I found people like you to help me kind of navigate the waters because I had a lot of passion, but maybe not so much knowledge on how things worked. So it was really beneficial to me to have someone like you to kind of bounce my ideas off of and get a little bit of advice on how to navigate the waters of like being a professional. Because I think when I started, I was only 17. So it was
Unbelievable.
really helpful.
Unbelievable. So it's very interesting. What people don't know outside of the sport of figure skating, and it's probably the same for all sports, is that we really are kind of a traveling family in a way. Um, and oftentimes you get to meet some of my very favorite people or people that I've met backstage at skating events, all kinds of different people, like in the media room and skaters, of course, and coaches and everything else. So tell me, as a very young person at the time, first of all, where did you get the idea to start taking figure skating photos? Secondly, what kind of equipment did you have? And thirdly, if you knew then what you know now, would you have had the nerve to do it?
Uh, no, I would not probably have had the nerve to do it if I knew what I know now. But I think sometimes ignorance is really bliss. I'm trying to remember your first question. What?
So you were so young. So what
Yes.
I want to tell
Um,
me about being such a young person, what gave you the idea that this is what you wanted to do?
okay, so I skated from when I was just like a little kid till I was roughly 18 at like the star skate level. So I wasn't like particularly good, but I really loved it. My social group was from there, and then I kind of like just didn't, I wasn't gonna make it in skating. It's fine. Um, but I had a friend who was doing a pair tryout, and her family wanted like pictures of the tryout for Facebook. And my mom had just gotten this like brand new point and shoot. This is 2007. So digital photography was kind of still new. And I really wanted to play with my mom's camera. And so I used this as an excuse to use her camera. I said, Mom, can I use your camera to take pictures? And that kind of just, it kind of blossomed from there. Obviously, there was a lot of work in between then and now, but it's really kind of when my like love for skating photography sparked.
It's so interesting. I mean, there are a couple of people who are already singing your praises. There is Evelyn's mom.
Hi,
Here
Dana.
is Jeff Buttle's mom.
Hi, Leslie. Oh, thank
Here
you.
is
That's so sweet.
nobody's mom, but Hugo Sweetheart, a genius of the music. So, what I
Hi,
want to know,
Hugo.
hi, Hugo, indeed. So, what I want to know is a little bit about your eye. I mean, part of it's the equipment for sure, but the fact that you have such wonderful composition and you're able to capture those moments. Explain to me a little bit about your process, if you don't mind.
It's developed over time for sure. I think at the beginning I started out and I really wanted to capture like the perfect sports picture, the perfect like frozen moment in time of like a spiral or a layback spin or something like that. And over time, it's kind of more evolved. At least I like to think it's evolved into kind of trying to capture the emotion and kind of like the story of the people behind the skater, if that makes sense. I'm trying to do like more, a little bit more behind the scenes, a little bit more emotion, and less so much the perfect skating shot, if that makes sense.
Well, it sure does. And actually, one of the reasons that we were going to get together today was for you to give me a selection of your favorite shots
Yeah.
and
Well,
the story behind them. As I said in the promotion, that, if a picture tells 1,000 words, I want to hear all the words. So we've got lots of people. Well, another person, unbelievable.
oh,
Suzanne
hi,
Morgan, thank you for
Suzanne.
doing it. And then I've got a great comment from Christine Love. Christine, talking about your excitement at making it to the Olympic Games. You have, you're part of a very, very small group of skating insiders who actually get accreditation for the Olympics. So before we get to the pictures, let's talk a little bit about getting to Pyeongchang and what that meant to you.
Uh, so much. I definitely cried when I found out. I thought it was a joke at the beginning. Um, it was, I don't know, one of the cool. I mean, I don't know how you say it's not the coolest. It's definitely the coolest experience of my life. I don't know how anything's going to top it. Um, yeah, it just was so so cool. And looking back, I have so many fond memories. And I was like nervous going into it because I was worried I wasn't going to know anyone, and I was just like a kid. And I and then knowing that you were there, and then I had Greg Coles, who is a colleague of mine, who was there as well, and I was feeling like nervous but good, and and it turned out really fun. And today is Olympic Day, so what a great day to talk about that.
Funny you should say that. One of my favorite and Olympic connections. Whoa, wait a second. There's Wojo. He's one of my favorite buddies too. He's a cameraman, so he knows all about
Woohoo!
composition. But this is one of my favorite TV guys, Shannon Mizell, who was at several Olympics with me, sort of running the TV side of the Olympic Games. So thank you for coming from North
Wow.
Carolina. Happy Olympic
Yeah.
Day, everybody. So it seems somehow apropos that legendary um,
Over and
Olympic photographer Danielle Earl is here with us. Okay.
legendary.
So why not? You're certainly, if you don't think of yourself as legendary yet, you're legendary in the making. How about that?
Okay, I'll take it. Thank you.
I'll take it. Okay. So let's get to some of your favorite photographs. So everybody, these are photographs that Danielle submitted to me that she felt were particularly special, and I want to know the story behind them. So you don't only photograph figure skating, but that's a big part of your business. You also
Yeah.
photograph dance competitions and dance
Mm,
recitals. Is that true? So
yeah.
this first image, let's talk about that. I called this Big and Little Girl. What do you call it?
Yeah. So with skating, I have more of a chance to like get a little bit behind the scenes. But with dance, I'm really kind of stuck in front of the stage, which is totally fine. And I love stage dance a lot. But this was kind of one moment that stood out to me, especially at this time of year, because it's everyone, the grads are moving on, and it's kind of the end of the road for them at dance, because typically when dancers, like skaters, typically go on maybe past high school if they choose. Um, but dance usually ends like when you graduate high school, you graduate out of your studio and go on to university. And this dancer was a graduating dancer, and it was, I think, the last competition of the season for her. And the little one was her like little protege, and I think maybe even student. And they got to do a duet together. And at the end, it was I'm confident it was their last competition of the season. And they got to, they were both in tears, and they got to, like, they hugged and walked off together. And it was really nice because I don't often, like, dancers are on and off the stage so quickly in competitions. You don't get to see a whole lot of like their personality when they're like their real personal personality. Like, you see their personality through their dance, but not their, like, you know. Anyway, so it was really nice to see that, just like real emotion, and I'm all about the emotion. So
So
it
it's
was
kind
like
of like
a really nice picture.
it's kind of like capturing not only what they do, which is the
Mhm.
emotion of the performance, but kind of their persona, who they are. So
Yeah.
it's super, super interesting. Speaking about a picture that captures who somebody is, it's one of my
Oh,
favorites. Kirsten
I
Moore
love that.
Towers. She is a fireball, and she was actually she and Michael Marinero, her partner, did one of my recent Facebook lives. They were outstanding. So tell me about that picture.
That picture was at the end of their long program at the 2018 Nationals. Um, it was the Olympic qualifier. So they had a clean skate, and I think they probably knew at that point that they had done enough to qualify, because that year there was three teams that were really strong, and it was kind of anyone's game throughout the whole season. And it was really kind of nice to see them have a clean skate, and that celebration, like at the end, that just like a bit of relief, I think, a bit of joy. It was really nice. One of my favorite pictures, I think. I have it hanging up in my office. I like it so much.
Do you know what's so interesting about a picture like this is that you're capturing a moment. That expression on Kirsten's face says everything. Um, it feels like it's an authentic moment. And I am always wondering about photography. If you are 1 second before or 1 second after, can you get the same? Like when you're editing your films and you're looking at all the different pictures you've taken, and you see that moment, gotcha. But the one
Mm-hmm.
just before it or the one after it, does it have the same kind of impact? I always wonder, especially with digital now, you can take so many of them.
Right. So I usually always do like a burst, because when you know it's coming, you kind of prepare for it. So, and then you can pick the like most impactful one out of the like section of 4 or 5 pictures. And I did, like, when I was going through to pick out photos for this, I definitely looked at to see if there was one that was maybe more emotional or more impactful. But the one before and the one after, it just wasn't that like split second that was, perfect.
Can you tell me, what does it mean? What is a burst?
Oh, it's when you shoot. That's just such familiar language to me. It's when you shoot like 4 or 5 pictures in like 1 second. Just like a
1 second.
yeah.
Is that the noise that I'm always hearing from photographers? That
Yeah, that's one.
I wondered what that noise was. Okay, we're going to move on to our next picture. And don't forget, everybody, you guys are welcome to come in with questions and comments. Here is our next photo.
Yes.
Where were
So,
you? What's happening?
where was I? I was in, I think, Quebec City, Saint Jean, Sur Richelieu, maybe. I think.
Let's go.
It was at Quebec Provincials last year. And that was just a moment. The skater's name is Frederic Adsoir, and the coach's name is Amélie Fortin. And there was just a moment before Frederic was about to skate, and she was waiting as the other skater before her was competing. And the coach was just fixing her sweater to keep her warm before she skated. And I thought that was just such a sweet little moment between them. So
Do you know what I really love about that picture? I love the fact that you can see the expression on the skater's face, and you can see that she's looking directly into her coach's eyes.
yeah, just like a little moment. Sometimes you need a grounding moment before you skate, and I just thought that was such a like sweet moment. And I
You
sent it to
know,
her mom.
oh, you're a good girl. Listen, I always kind of wonder a little bit. Do you feel sometimes as if you're intruding on like a private moment? Do you feel like do you have self-imposed boundaries? Do you have, like, how do you manage those kinds of, obviously, that's a sweet personal moment, but there are other moments,
Yeah.
as we know, for skaters where they've had a disastrous performance, let's say. How do you manage capturing the moment without intruding on them personally?
It's such a good question. I have kind of made it my a personal choice not to necessarily shoot um, the negative stuff so much. Um, I try and be a very positive person, and I like to celebrate skating and dance and all the sports that I shoot. And while you can learn so much from like a negative experience, I don't think it necessarily is something that people would like to look back on so much. So I try to be respectful of the skaters' boundaries, in terms of like what I shoot. And if they're uncomfortable or having like a down time, I don't shoot really. I don't I want to build up respect between and trust between myself and a skater or an athlete of any kind. And I don't think that that's for me. what I like to focus on.
Do you know what? I'm the same as a writer. If somebody has had a disastrous skate, I want to give them a little bit of time to compose themselves. I don't
Yeah.
want to hijack anybody. This is a great question from Shannon Mizell. Your biggest challenge shooting at the Olympic Games. Shannon actually worked at figure skating in Torino and I think at Salt Lake as well. So he knows how crowded it can get. What's your best memory of the games in Pyeongchang? And did you capture your best moment?
Well, my biggest challenge, definitely one that comes top of mind is actually for the pairs free skate. I was somehow lucky enough to get field of play tickets, which are like ice level tickets.
You may
for the
want to back
free
up a
skate.
little bit so that people
Yeah.
know that there's a draw, just so that they know what you're talking about for your
Yes.
position.
So for photographers, for the Olympics, it's basically like you can go anywhere where photographers are allowed. But figure skating, because it's a high popularity sport, they actually ticket media so that it's not too overcrowded. So you need a ticket to get into the rink, basically as a media person, and then you're either like given they letter it. So A tickets are whatever this section, B tickets are that section. So for the most part, I was up in the X section, which is like 2 sections behind, like up in the rafters, basically.
Yes.
But I somehow managed to be given a field of play or ice level ticket for the pairs short and free, which was a huge stroke of luck because I was very low on the priority list. And right as Aliona and Bruno were skating, like right at the end of their program, the shutter on my camera broke, which means that I couldn't take pictures. And when you're on the field of play, you're not allowed to leave it until the event is over or during a flood. And at that point, my one choice was a flood, and then the event would have been over. So I'm in a full panic. I'm like, I got missing my one chance. Like Megan and Eric skate next.
Andrew had to have a ticket too as a camera guy.
Yeah.
So Megan and Eric were about to skate.
And my camera was broken, and I call it a newbie mistake. I did not bring my backup camera. So I was looking around in my section of photographers to see who was a Nikon shooter and if somebody was willing to lend me a camera for the last 3 skaters. And I was so lucky that a photographer named Paul Chasson was there. And he was the only Nikon shooter on the floor. And I rushed over and I like begged him to loan me a camera, and he wasn't super happy, but he was very, very nice about it. He works for the Canadian Press, and he loaned me his backup body for the last 3 skaters, and I made it through, and I was so grateful for him. And I don't think I'll ever live it down in my head because it's such a stupid mistake that I made. Oh, hi, Garth.
Garth's a little bit afraid of thunder and lightning, and we've got a rainstorm. So he's been whining at my feet, so I finally just had to pick him up. So he's helping us now.
I love his little feet.
So that's a huge challenge. But you persevered. So did you capture the moment that you were looking for?
I did. I was glad that I got to photograph Megan and Eric because it was quite a competitive pairs field in 2018.
Sure was. Yep.
And they snuck in there and got the bronze, which is great. And they had such a good reaction at the end of their program. And I was really like so grateful to Paul. And I feel like I owe him my life.
Paul, and I've had dinner with him before with a whole bunch of other kind of journalist types, and good for him. I'm glad to see that he was able to do the right thing. So here's another question, and this one is from Janice Gaiman.
Hi, Janice.
Which figure skating discipline do you find are the easiest and most difficult to photograph?
Such a good question. Pairs is the hardest, hands down.
Really?
Yep. They do a lot of side-by-side skating, which I find challenging to shoot. And they have a lot of like up elements, which are also, for me, whatever reason, more challenging to shoot. But such a great discipline to watch. And then singles is easiest, but I really love watching ice dance and shooting ice dance because there's that connection between 2 people that really draws in a little bit of emotion. And and a feeling that maybe singles not as easy to convey through an image.
Because
If
they're
that
by
makes sense.
themselves,
Yeah,
obviously.
basically.
What about synchro with all those skaters
Oh,
on the
I love
thing? That's
synchro.
hard to capture too, I think.
Yeah, it can be. It can be, especially now that there's a lot more like separate elements and creative moves and stuff. It's a bit more challenging, but and like wheels and intersecting wheels and that kind of stuff is challenging. But I really like synchro because it's a group of people, and again, I'm like gonna keep going back to there's a lot more of a connection between the team members, and it's fun to see that kind of stuff. I cry a lot when I shoot skating because I'm so invested. um, but I cried the most I think at synchro because it's just like there's a lot of things working against synchro in terms of number of people and personalities. Yes, Sharon. Sharon's actually my old office assistant.
So yes, apparently Sharon, she does like shooting
I
synchro.
do love shooting synchro. I was a synchro skater. My sister was a synchro skater. We both very much fond of synchro. But
I
yeah, I really love shooting synchro, and I actually don't find it that difficult in comparison to like something like pairs.
that's super interesting. Okay, here's a great question before we go on with more pictures from Bobby. Your
Oh,
pictures have a very artistic aesthetic, I think.
oh, thank you,
Do you have a
Bobby.
background in art?
No, I everything I have taught myself.
So where did you come up with the moments of wonderful composition that you get? Is it just that you actually happen to see the story through the lens and that's when you click, or what makes it work for you?
It's a good question, and I don't know if I can really explain it. I think a lot of practice helps. I mean, I've shot skating since I was 14, so it's a lot of practice. I think that really helps develop like a what you like to see in a photo. And also like great subjects help. I have a lot of great people that I shoot, and I'm really lucky that they're so generous with their emotions and their um, passion for whatever they're doing.
Anne Monahan wants to know about how you pace yourself. We've all been in cold drinks for like a whole day. Do you find it really time goes by fast? Like it's funny. Sometimes at the beginning of a competition, if
For
I'm doing
sure.
commentary and I've got to do every skater and every discipline, I look at a 14-hour day, I think, how am I going to get through this? And before I
Okay.
blink, it's over. So how does it feel for you? It's backbreaking work what you're doing. You're carrying a lot of equipment, you're standing on
Uh-huh.
those concrete floors. Tell me about the pacing.
Um, Sometimes it's easier than others. I think at Minto, I'm like raring and ready to go because it's the first competition of the season, and I'm like, I can do this forever. And then maybe by December, I'm a little more tired. um, but in terms of keeping warm, I don't. I just get cold. I think you can, well, I just push through it. And I usually I can start out strong, and then by 4 p.m., I'm like, ooh, could use a nap. But if you push past, you push past 4 p.m. and then you get your second wind and you're good to go. I think it's just like conditioning, really. Like you just kind of get used to it.
You do get used to it. So let's just take a look at sort of our next photograph.
Oh, for
Speaking of
sure.
synchro,
Oh, I was lucky enough to be invited to shoot the one team movement camp last summer. And I was so excited to go again this year, but it was canceled, unfortunately. But
yeah,
I love how they run their groups. They have like a senior level synchro skater who's in charge of all their group, which is to younger skaters, obviously. And I just love that picture. That skater, the taller one, is from Les Supreme Senior, and the two little ones, I think she was like their camp counselor, and they just you can tell that they just like had such a good bond with her, and I thought it
they,
was really cute.
they probably were so excited to be around her. I mean, she's where
For
they want to
sure.
be. So that's
Exactly.
super exciting. Another great comment from Linda. Have you ever been surprised by a photo when you were reviewing a shoot afterwards?
Hmm. It's a good question. Yes and no. I think when you're reviewing picture, the thing has already happened, so I'm not necessarily surprised. by it, but sometimes I'm like pleasantly surprised that I like nailed the focus.
Is there
That
so
makes
much
sense.
going on? Like, I honestly don't know how you keep your attention. Like, are you anticipating that there's going to be, the wonderful twist, and so you're trying to focus on the pairs doing the twist and getting the girl in the air? Are you
Yeah.
focused on, oh, I've only got X amount of time left? Are you looking at
Uh-huh.
your battery gauge? Like, what? Tell me
Oh,
the different things that go through your mind.
well, I don't look at my battery gauge, which is to my own detriment. That has bit me in the butt a couple times, so I'm getting better. Um, I try to watch practices to kind of get an idea of how program's going to run, and by the time like nationals and stuff hits, I kind of have a good idea of how things work. um, but I don't know. I think I just because I know skating so well now, I always knew it pretty well, but it's pretty easy to kind of like see the patterns and predict how things are coming, like how they're going to come up. And I don't know. I honestly can't explain.
Have
Just
you caught any of the, I like to call them the dance warm up crashes? Honestly, those skaters get so close,
um,
I can't watch.
I've
So,
no, I've never like photographed one,
ooh,
but I've seen my fair share. They really stake their claim on the ice.
well, they do. It's the most extraordinary game of, I call it chicken. I mean,
Yeah, they do a
they're
great
within
job.
inches of each other. It's just crazy. All right, tell me a little bit about this. Set this up. This is obviously before
Okay.
skaters are going on the ice. Tell me about this
Yes.
photo.
It was Autumn Classic last year. This is Lila Fear and Lewis Gibson. Um,
Who
they were
represent the
everyone,
UK?
yep. They were just about to announce the 5 minute warm up, and they were just taking a minute to, center themselves as a team. Some teams hug, some teams do like a little massage, some teams will, just breathe together. Um, and they just took their hands and were like calming themselves down. And I just, yeah, I
So
thought it
you
was a
just
nice moment.
It is a nice moment for sure. A couple of people, Bev Marinero, Michael Marinero's mom says you're amazing.
Hi, Bev.
Hi, Bev. And Elizabeth Cardosa Taylor, another longtime fan.
Yes.
Where's your purple scarf? I mean, you are
Oh,
well known for that scarf.
it's too hot. It's too hot to wear the purple scarf.
Is
I
there a story
a
behind
couple
that
weeks
scarf?
ago. It's well, I don't like to wear a coat in the rink because I need to be able to move around a fair amount, and to keep warm, a scarf helps. So
And
I love purple as my company color, and I love purple. It's one of my favorite colors. So um, I have been gifted actually many of a purple scarf over the years, and I just kind of always wear one now because it's nice to you can spot me at the end of the rink
yeah,
with my little purple scarf on.
we sure can. I love this moment. This to me is
Uh,
what skating is about. Tell me about it.
this is one of my absolute favorite pictures of all time. I mean, I've taken so many pictures, but this one last year at Synchro Provincials for Ontario, um, it was I think maybe the juvenile, pre-juvenile, one of the like really young team levels, and this little one was an alternate on the Tavistock team, and she was just so enthusiastic. I love kind of shooting the alternates when the team is skating because they don't always get the opportunity to actually go on the ice and get skating photos. So it's I try and make sure that everyone gets a little bit of photos if I can. And I just saw her like telling her teammates to keep going and smile and do their best, and I thought it was super cute. And she is so enthusiastic, and I know I've talked to her mom, and I know she worked really, really hard to make it onto that team. So it just made it all the more sweet
It is
after
very
like I knew the backstory of it.
It's amazing. It's funny when we were just talking about shooting some kind of if there are accidents or something. Andrew Lotteridge, again, famous cameraman that I've known for a
Oh,
gazillion years, he happened to see Jessica Dubé and Bryce Davison get too close on the side by side camels, and Dubé got a blade in the face. So
I
I don't
remember
know that I
watching that
could
on
do,
TV.
yeah, I don't know if I could do your job or his job. Um, do you ever kind of worry that something's going to happen and that you're going to actually see it unfold, or does it just not cross your mind? You're busy focusing on other things.
I it does affect me. I this year actually at nationals in the junior pair short program, there was a team that had a really really bad fall on a twist, and I had just so happened um, to look over at that exact moment, and I saw it go down, and I knew there was nothing I could do, and I think I was maybe the only one who saw it in real time because nobody else around me reacted. But it was maybe one of the worst things I've ever seen in skating, including Jessica Dubé getting her face sliced, which was also horrifying. But yeah, usually I some skaters always are like asking if they can get a picture of their like crazy fall because afterwards skaters fall a lot, so they typically once they get over the disappointment they'll find it funny and um but that one I was like, oh gosh, I could never photograph it. too
It's really tough.
too shocking.
I, I used to say when I used to watch, I used to call them prenatal pairs because they were so young. But
Oh
when
my
they're
god.
first starting to lift, which I think is at pre-novice, like
Hmm.
honestly, it was more than my mother's heart could do because it was just, oh, don't look now. Anyway, many more survive pairs than don't. So that's the
It's
good
true.
news. But it's
I
just
would say like
terrifying.
100% survival rate almost.
I think it's pretty good. I think you're right. So this is your last photo that you submitted. And
Yeah.
because of a very special relationship with these two, I want you to tell me about this picture because this looks like the two people that I know and have known since they were kids. So we're looking
Uh-huh.
at Richard and Scott Moyer. Where were you and how did you happen to capture this?
So I was actually on the ice for this. I put on my skates for the first time in like 8 years. It was actually at the rehearsal, the very beginning rehearsals for their Thank You Canada tour. And they were learning choreography. It was kind of the end of a really long day. And everyone was getting a little silly and they were doing the choreography and Scott was just tickling Tessa and I thought it was so funny. And I just like was happened to be in the right place at the right time to like shoot it because I was zooming around on my skates and I was like, it was one of the like more fun moments of that week that we were in choreography.
Do you know what I loved about that picture is just the belly laugh that we can see on
Hmm.
Scott's face. I mean, I can
You can
almost
like almost hear it.
exactly. This is another great question. This one from Brian Dole, whom we both
Hi,
know.
Brian.
Brian, indeed. Is there a skater or pair that you always look forward to shooting? Maybe someone that you know will sometimes look directly at you, or news that you moves, not news, moves. I can't read. That will look amazing in a photo.
Such a good question. I try not to pick favorites because I love everyone.
But
Um,
actually, let me just qualify that statement. It's not a favorite in terms of you like them best because
mhm,
you're equally respectful to all of them, but it's
for
just
sure.
back in the day Emmanuel Sandou you knew as a spectator was going to
Mhm,
deliver something super cool, so you couldn't wait for him to hit the ice regardless of whether the performance went well or badly. It
for
still was
sure.
visually super interesting. Same with Tessa and Scott. I think that's
Mhm,
what you're talking about is more like the
yeah.
the artistry of what the image is going to look like at the end.
Yeah. Okay. So Tess and Scott for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I always like watching Michelle Long. She wears her heart on her sleeve. So, she's just such a performer, and she always is giving like 175% of herself in a performance. And I just like there's something about that I just love so much. And I always wish that there was a little bit more of that in skating because it's very technical now, which is fine and great. But Michelle really like puts her heart out there on the ice, and I appreciate that a lot.
Anybody else that you can think of? What if you had a chance to go back in time to
Hmm.
photograph somebody, who would have been on your list to photograph?
I always said it was Sasha Cohen because she has the greatest spirals and the greatest split jumps.
Yes, she really does. I mean, so flexible. So
Yeah. And that's what kind of drew me into skating in general. And I always wish that I was a little bit earlier and had the opportunity to photograph Joanie Rachette more
yeah,
because I was like, I love Joanie Rachette. She was like
Um,
as a kid, one of my favorite skaters ever.
so if little Danielle could have gone back in time,
Mhm,
and you were fooling around with your mom's point and shoot at the pair
mhm,
practice, could you have
mhm.
imagined that it would have led into this kind of career? Or where did little Danielle imagine she was going to be when she grew up?
I always thought I was going to be a pediatrician.
Really?
Yep. Which
That's
I
crazy.
very quickly learned that I was not good at science or not motivated.
Okay.
Um, Not motivated to study for science. um, and then, as soon as I was like 14, 15, I kind of couldn't see anything else that I was as passionate about as skating, photography, skating photography. So I guess I never set out with the intention to do this as my job. I thought I would find something within skating, but definitely not this, if that makes any sense.
What do you find when you are in a packed media room at the Olympic Games? And
Mm.
I have often seen photos of the photographers at figure skating and just how packed it is. How do you carve out enough space for you? Like, is there a piece of paper in front that says this is spot A1 or whatever, and that's where you're at? Or because you guys carry a lot of, what people don't know, got a lot of stuff with you. I mean, you got a backpack, you got cameras, you've got lenses, you've got all kinds of stuff. So, how do you carve out space for yourself? And are you intimidated when you are elbow to elbow with all of these other people looking for that great shot?
The Olympics was kind of like eye opening because I'm up to that point. I had shot a couple worlds, and that was like big. And then, but mostly Skate Canada International, and like national level events. Um, and it was extremely intimidating at the beginning. I At the Olympics, you kind of have to guard everything with your life. That's what I was told. Um, you take your business card and you tape it to the desk to like mark your spot in the actual media room. But and then when you're like shooting, like in the rink, everyone is assigned a spot, so it's not as like competitive in terms of that because everyone has a space that they're assigned to, which is eliminates like a bit of the like fighting that could happen if not.
And there is some of that for sure.
Mhm,
Do you
for sure.
find that people are going to, uh, do people want a better angle than you if you've got this one spot? And actually, Andrew's got a great point, sharp elbows.
Yes, very sharp elbows. and
Um,
like wide stance.
because you have to, you
Yeah,
absolutely have to. Uh,
yeah. And you have to
what's
be willing to be like, nah, get out of my spot. That's my spot.
what's next for you? What is it that you're hoping is going to happen next for you professionally?
Well, I really hope that, oh, you don't mean like in general? I really
We can
hope
do both.
skating
We can do both.
competitions come back.
I do too. Yeah.
Because that's like the bulk of my job. Um, Professionally, I would really love to go back to the Olympics. I don't know, you can't ever assume that you're going to. But I think that is a goal that I have. Not that I've really said it out loud before. Um, but I want to work on expanding the vendor pillar of my business. But that will require skating competitions to come back.
Yeah.
And other than that, just kind of like keep having a good time. I started taking photos to have a good time, and I would like to continue to have a good time.
Is there a difference in focus in terms of what you do and how you present your work if you're photographing dancers
Mhm.
or figure skaters? Or have you ever tried like photographing a hockey game or a wedding or something else? And if you were to, what are the things that you would need to consider in approaching that subject?
I do occasionally do a wedding. I don't. It's not my favorite. I find it very high pressure. um, Not that the Olympics isn't extremely high pressure, but I don't know um, something about a wedding stresses me out. I would love to start shooting gymnastics or like swimming, or there's a whole bunch of sports that I'd love to try. But in terms of focus, I don't know. It's all hockey terrifies me mostly because it's a contact sport, and all that hitting stresses me out.
Me too, actually. I want to say, don't
um,
do that. Stop that.
yeah, yeah, like ouch. um, so, and I'm not super familiar with hockey in terms of how the game actually runs, and I find that I I feel like I had like a bit of a leg up in skating because I knew how it worked, and I find that knowing like a comprehensive amount of about the sport really like helps capture it, and I feel I wouldn't do hockey justice if I was to shoot it because I don't know enough about it, and I could obviously learn.
Sure.
um, but that takes a lot of time and sometimes you just don't have a lot of spare time. But it's definitely something I'm definitely looking to expand into sports, and I'm hoping that the way that my potential changes in my company um, are coming, I'll have more chance to time and ability to do that. So we'll see.
So if people want to check out your website, it's DanielleEarlPhotography.com.
Yeah,
All the social media links are there. You're on Instagram extremely actively
I
at
love
Danielle
Instagram.
Earl Photography. And on Twitter, it's at Danielle E Photo. And
Mhm.
then www.facebook.com/Danielle Earl Photography. You know what? Tammy's saying she agrees with you about weddings. There's
I
also
used to skate with Tammy.
oh, hi, Tammy. Nice to
Yeah,
have you.
hi
Um,
Tammy.
Andrew's giving you a little bit more information. Hockey is follow the
Oh,
puck.
I
Is
gotcha.
that what that is? And then the other thing is you've got a great offer for Beijing.
All right.
You can go to
Oh,
his rink
I would love
cutout.
to show you a rink board cutout, Andrew. That would be my dream.
And
Let's
if
make it
I'm there,
happen.
I will make it all happen. I'll introduce everybody.
Beautiful. Love it. I actually saw
Um,
you in Pyeongchang at the gala, and I turned around one minute you were there, and the next minute you were gone. And I was like, oh, that was my one and only chance to see PJ, and she's gone.
see what happens.
Disappointment.
I
So
have to keep on
disappointed.
the move. You never know who's after me.
Honestly.
So, Danielle, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out to speak with us
Oh,
today and about all your favorite photos and the stories
oh, thank
behind
you.
them. It's not sometimes what we think. Sometimes it's the photos that sort of pull at our hearts a little bit. And I encourage everybody to follow you and to like you and to do all
Oh,
those
thank you.
validating things on social media. For my part, come follow me at Skating PJ on Twitter or at PJ Kwong on Instagram. And no, wait a second, subscribe to my YouTube
Yes,
channel. I'm by myself.
okay.
People, pardon me. Anyway, thank you so much for taking the time. So
Oh,
subscribe to
thank
both of our
you.
YouTube channels and follow us. And I'm
Oh,
sure we'll
I
be
don't have a
talking
YouTube.
again.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, PJ, for having me.
Thank you, Danielle. We'll talk again soon. Bye for now.
Bye.